The Pacific Ocean is a vast, burning blue. But on this day, April 6, 1945, off the coast of an island called Okinawa, the blue is being blotted out. The sky itself is sick, humming with a fever of dark intent. This is not the war of armies clashing on a field. This is a new, terrifying form of warfare, one where the enemy's sole objective is to die and to take you with him. This is the divine wind, the Kamikaze. And aboard the USS Laffey, a lone destroyer tasked with a shields duty, a young sailor from Iowa or Pennsylvania or Texas stares into the endless horizon. He doesn't know it yet, but he is about to become a statistic of the impossible. He is about to endure an onslaught so concentrated, so brutal, it would be seared into the history books as a day of sheer, unadulterated hell. Imagine the sound, not of one engine, but of a dozen, a swarm of angry bees growing from a whisper to a scream in the space of a single panicked heartbeat. The world shrinks to the deck of a ship, the taste of salt and fear, and the terrifying sight of a single black dot on the horizon, getting larger, fast. This is the story of the men who didn't just face death, but who watched it fly towards them, 7 times in a single sun-scorched day. This is the story of the soldier who survived. The air is thick, heavy with a tension you can almost touch. The USS Laffey, a Benson-class destroyer, cuts through the choppy swells, a lone sentinel on the radar picket line. They call this station the Tombstone of the Pacific, and every man aboard knows why. They are the canary in the coal mine, the first and last line of defense for the massive invasion fleet gathered off Okinawa. Their job is to see the enemy coming and sound the alarm, a duty that makes them the primary target. On the bridge, Lieutenant Commander Julian Beckton feels the weight of every one of his 336 souls. He scans the flawless blue dome above, a deceivingly beautiful day. The sea whispers against the hull, a lulling sound betrayed by the frantic electronic chirp of the radar scope. Below, in the Combat Information Center, the air is cool and stale, lit by the ghostly green glow of screens. A blip appears, then another, and another. The operator's voice, tight with controlled panic, crackles over the ship's intercom. Multiple bogeys, bearing 275, Angels 10, range 25 miles and closing fast. The words hang in the air for a fraction of a second before the general quarters alarm shatters the silence. A clanging metallic scream that turns boys into men and men into statues of focused dread. Feet pound on steel decks, hatches slam shut, sealing the ship into a labyrinth of watertight compartments. The 5-inch gun mounts swivel, their long barrels searching the sky like the antenna of a startled insect. Men, their faces already smeared with sweat and grease, load shells the size of small children into the breeches. The air crackles with shouted commands and the electric whir of hydraulic motors. And then you hear it. A distant drone, like a far-off threshing machine. It grows, layering upon itself, until it becomes a deafening, teeth-rattling roar. You look up, and your blood runs cold. They are not specks anymore. They are aircraft. Zeros, Vals, Kates, a mixed swarm of death, their red rising sun insignias glaring like malevolent eyes. They don't fly in formation. They come from every point on the compass, an organized, terrifying stampede from the sky. How do you fight a foe who has already accepted his own death? How do you stop a man who sees his destruction as his victory? The Laffey's uns open up, a thunderous, concussive roar that punches you in the chest. The first black puffs of flak dot the sky, a desperate attempt to weave a curtain of steel between the ship and the swarm. The world dissolves into noise and fire. The 20mm Oerlikon cannons join the chorus, their rapid pop-pop-pop-pop, a frantic counterpoint to the 5-incher's basso-profundo blast. Empty shell casings clatter and roll across the deck, piling up around the gunner's feet. The smell is acrid, cordite, hot metal, and ozone. A Val dive bomber peels off from the swarm, its engine screaming in a terminal dive. It's aiming right for the bridge. Time seems to slow. You can see the rivets on its wings, the blurred face of the pilot behind the glass, committed to his fiery altar. The 20mm gunners on the port side track it, their tracers, bright red lines of death, reaching out, stitching across its wing and fuselage. Pieces fly off. The plane shudders, but it doesn't deviate. It keeps coming. It's a race between physics and firepower. At the last possible second, a 5-inch shell finds its mark. The valve vanishes in a brilliant orange fireball, so close that the shockwave rocks the Laffey on its keel, and a rain of shrapnel and burning fuel patters against the superstructure. The men cheer, a raw, guttural sound, but it's cut short. There's no time for relief, because as the smoke clears, 2 more are already lining up for their run. The first attack was a warning. The second is a promise of the hell to come. And the men of the Laffey have only just begun to fight, their fate hanging on a thread of courage and luck as the sky continues to darken with the shadows of the divine wind, each one hunting for a piece of their souls. The roar of the first explosion still echoes in the ears of every man aboard, a phantom vibration in the steel beneath their feet. The taste of smoke is in their mouths, the acrid flavor of a near miss. But there is no time to process, no time to fear. The swarm is relentless. Before the echoes of the first kamikaze's death cry have faded, another engine screams into the audible range, this one coming in low and fast, skimming the wave tops, a tactic designed to slip beneath the radar and the guns. "Low on the starboard bow! Jesus, he's low!" a lookout screams, his voice cracking with the strain. All guns that can bear swing to starboard, the gunners leaning into their sights, their world reduced to a circle of glass and the approaching speck of doom. This pilot is good. He weaves, jinking slightly to throw off their aim, the white wake of his propeller kicking up spray from the ocean's surface. He is a ghost rider, coming to claim his prize. The 20mm and 40mm guns open up, their tracers creating a deadly latticework, a net of fire trying to ensnare the diving hawk. But he slips through, his wings clipping the very tops of the waves. He is seconds from impact. This is it. This is the one. You can feel it in the pit of your stomach, a cold, certain dread. Then, a miracle. A lone 40mm Bofors gun, its crew operating on pure instinct, finds the range. The shells walk up the water, onto the plane's nose, and into the cockpit. The Zero doesn't explode. It simply disintegrates, coming apart in a cloud of shredded aluminum and debris that showers the starboard side of the ship. A wheel bounces across the deck, a piece of wing cartwheels into the sea. The pilot is vaporized. A collective, shaky breath is drawn. But the reprieve is measured in heartbeats. The radar screen in CIC is a solid mass of glowing contacts. They are surrounded. The kamikazes are not attacking in sequence. They are attacking in a coordinated frenzy, coming from port, starboard, astern, and ahead simultaneously. The Laffey is a cornered animal, lashing out in every direction. The noise is indescribable now, a constant physical assault. The booming of the main batteries, the jackhammering of the lighter anti-aircraft guns, the shriek of incoming aircraft, the shattering clang of shrapnel hitting the hull, and beneath it all, the desperate shouted commands that are barely heard over the din. Men are no longer thinking, they are reacting. They are extensions of their guns, their eyes glued to sights, their hands moving on muscle memory, loading, firing, swiveling, searching for the next threat. High above the chaos, a twin-engine Betty bomber circles, a vulture assessing its prey. It's not diving, it's waiting. This is a new kind of terror, a psychological game. The men can see it, a dark, patient shape against the sun, and they know what it carries. This is no single-engine fighter with a bomb. This is a larger aircraft, capable of delivering a much larger, more destructive payload. It's the hammer waiting to fall. Commander Becton, his shirt soaked with sweat, barks orders to try and bring a main battery to bear, but the Betty stays expertly out of range, just beyond the effective ceiling of the 5-inch guns. It's directing the others, hurting the sharks. Then it makes its move. It doesn't dive. It begins a slow, deliberate glide bombing approach, a move of chilling calculation. The guns strain to elevate, their barrels pointing almost straight up. The 20mm and 40mm crews pour everything they have into the sky, the tracers arcing up like a reverse meteor shower. But the Betty flies on, a beast armored in its own inevitability. A 5-inch shell explodes near its wingtip, but it barely wobbles. It is committed. This is no suicide run of passion. This is a cold, clinical delivery of death. A bomb separates from its belly, a black egg of annihilation, falling silently, it seems, amidst all the noise. Time stops. Every man on the port side watches it fall, a silent prayer on their lips. The bomb hits the water a mere 20 yards off the port beam, the resulting geyser of water drenching the deck and momentarily blinding the gunners. It was a near miss, But the message is clear. The enemy has more than one way to kill you. As the water clears, the Betty, its bomb gone, now transforms into a kamikaze itself. It banks and begins its final fiery descent. But the momentary distraction of the bomb was all another gun crew needed. A sustained burst from a quad 40mm mount catches the bomber square in the nose. Its engines cough smoke, and then it lurches, veering off course and slamming into the sea just 50 yards astern, its own explosion swallowed by the deep. The men are tiring now. The adrenaline that granted them superhuman focus is beginning to ebb, replaced by a bone-deep weariness and the gnawing, ever-present fear. The decks are littered with spent brass, and the air is so thick with smoke it's hard to breathe. They have beaten back 3, 4, 5 attacks. No one is counting. It feels like 100. And just as they think just might, be getting a handle on the chaos, a new sound cuts through the bedlam. The high-pitched, unmistakable scream of a dive bomber in a near-vertical dive. They look up to see a Val, its fixed landing gears making it look like a bird of prey with its claws extended, plummeting directly for the ship's most vulnerable spot, the aft deckhouse, where the deck charges are stored. If that pilot hits his mark, the Laffey and every soul on her will be blown into a million pieces, leaving nothing but a slick of oil on the burning blue water. The gunners swing their weapons skyward, knowing they have only one chance, one fleeting second to change their destiny, as the screaming eagle of death plummets towards its nest. The scream of the diving Val is a physical thing, a nail driven into the eardrums of every sailor on the aft deck. It's a sound that bypasses the brain and speaks directly to the primal core, screaming one word: death. The gun crews, their muscles screaming in protest, haul their weapons to their maximum elevation. The 20mm gunners, their shoulders bruised from the relentless recoil, lean into their sights, the image of the plummeting Tmain bouncing in their circles of glass. Tracer rounds, their red lines nearly vertical, reach up to meet it. It's a desperate, last-ditch geometric equation being solved in a split second under fire. The Val fills the sky, growing from a shape to a monster, its cockpit glass reflecting the hellish fires below. You can see the bomb slung under its belly. You can almost see the pilot's face, a pale oval of resolve. This is the moment of truth. Impact is seconds away. The very deck seems to tilt in anticipation of the cataclysmic blast. Then, a single 40mm shell, fired from a gun whose crew will never be sure they were the ones who fired it, strikes the Val's port wing root. The effect is instantaneous. The wing shears off, spinning away like a discarded toy. The plane, robbed of its aerodynamic integrity, tumbles violently out of its dive. It cartwheels over the ship's stern, its wingtip clipping the radar mast with a sickening crunch of metal, before slamming into the sea just 10 yards off the starboard quarter. The bomb detonates on impact with the water, the underwater concussion hitting the Laffey's hull like a giant hammer, throwing men from their feet. But the ship is intact. The depth charges are safe. For now. A strange momentary silence falls, broken only by the crackle of fires and the desperate moans of the wounded being carried below. The men look at each other, their faces blackened by smoke, their eyes wide with a mixture of shock and disbelief. They have stared into the abyss, and the abyss has blinked. But the cost is already being tallied. The radar is gone, a mangled ruin of wiring and steel. Communications are spotty, and the sickbay below is a scene from a nightmare, where pharmacists' mates, kids themselves, work with grim determination to staunch wounds and ease passing, the smell of blood and antiseptic thick in the air. Commander Becton on the bridge receives the damage reports. His ship is wounded, bleeding speed and capability. But she is still afloat. She is still fighting. He knows with a cold certainty that the Japanese commanders have now fixated on the Laffey. She is the one that won't die, the stubborn American destroyer that is spoiling their divine wind. She has become a symbol, and symbols must be broken. He looks out at the horizon, and his blood runs cold. The attacks have paused, but the swarm is still there, circling, regrouping. They are like wolves testing a bull moose, looking for a new angle of attack. The lull is not a respite. It is the calm before an even greater storm. What do you do when you have given everything you have, and the enemy still has more to give? How do you find the strength to raise your arms one more time when every muscle, every nerve is screaming for rest? The answer comes from the men themselves. Without being ordered, they begin the grim work of battle station replenishment. Ammunition handlers, their backs aching, form human chains, passing heavy shells from the magazines to the guns. Damage control parties, armed with axes and fire hoses, battle the lingering fires, the water turning to steam on hot steel. They are no longer just sailors. They are a single organism, fighting for its collective life. A young gunner's mate, not yet 20, sits on an ammo crate for a 10-second break, his hands shaking so violently he can't light his cigarette. An older seaman, a veteran of North Atlantic convoys, places a steadying hand on his shoulder, lights it for him, and says something with a grim smile. The kid nods, takes a drag, and stands up, returning to his gun. This is the unbreakable American spirit, forged in the furnace of impossible odds. Then, the radar, what's left of it, picks up new contacts, low and fast, 2 of them. This time, they're coming from directly ahead and directly astern, a pincer movement designed to split the ship's defenses. The general quarters alarm sounds again, a weary, hoarse clang that has lost its initial shock, but none of its urgency. The men run back to their posts, their fatigue shoved down into a deep, hidden reservoir of strength they didn't know they possessed. The forward 5-inch guns rotate to face the bow threat, while every aft weapon swings to cover the stern. The Laffey steams forward, a wounded lion caught between 2 hunters. The 2 dots grow with terrifying speed, and the gunners make a chilling realization. These aren't zeros or vowels. They are Ohka-piloted bombs, the infamous Baka bombs, rocket-powered coffins carrying a massive warhead in the nose, and they are the fastest things in the sky. There will be no time for second chances. There will be barely time to react. As the Laffey braces for the simultaneous impact, caught in a deadly crossfire from hell, the only thing that stands between survival and oblivion is the skill and courage of a handful of exhausted men. Their fingers tightening on triggers, their eyes locked on the twin spears of death racing toward them from opposite horizons. The Ohka bombs are a blur, a terrifying leap in technology and terror. They are not aircraft. They are guided missiles with a man inside, and they move at a speed that seems to defy physics. The one approaching from the bow is a white streak against the blue, a sliver of death moving so fast the gun directors can barely track it. The forward gun mounts fire almost on instinct, their shells exploding in the sky behind the streaking bomb. It's like trying to shoot a bullet with another bullet. The 40mm and 20mm crews open up, their tracers converging in a futile, lagging pursuit. The Ohka is simply moving too fast. It's going to hit. It's going to hit the bow and blow the entire front of the ship into splinters. Men on the forecastle brace for the end, throwing themselves to the deck, their hands over their heads in a useless, instinctual gesture of self-preservation. But at the last possible millisecond, the Laffey's helmsman, acting on pure, unthinking courage, throws the helm hard over. The ship lurches violently to starboard. The Ohka, its pilot unable to correct his aim at such a velocity, screams past the port side, missing the hull by less than 10 feet. The sonic boom of its passage is a physical slap, and the shockwave from its rocket motor rattles the entire superstructure. It flies on for a mile before its fuel expires and it plunges into the sea. The men on the bow look up, stunned to be alive. But the reprieve from the bow attack is instantly overshadowed by the crisis astern. The second Ohka is coming in, and the helmsman's evasive action has now presented the ship's broadside, a much larger target, to the stern attacker. The aft guns are firing wildly, trying to lead the impossibly fast target. A 20mm gun crew, their world a cacophony of noise and vibration, sees the Ohka fill their vision. They fire until their barrels are hot, the shells walking directly into the path of the piloted bomb. It's a direct hit. The Ohka's warhead detonates not on the ship, but just 20 yards off the starboard fantail. The explosion is monumental, a flash of light and a force of pure destruction that lifts the Laffey stern clean out of the water. The entire ship shudders as if struck by the hand of God. Men are thrown like rag dolls. Those at the very stern are simply gone, vaporized. The aft 5-inch gun mount is smashed into a twisted sculpture of metal. Fires erupt instantly, fed by ruptured fuel lines. The rudder is jammed. The Laffey is now crippled, circling helplessly in the water, a sitting duck. The damage is catastrophic. Below decks, in the steering engine room, seawater pours in through ruptured plates. The lights flicker and die, plunging men into darkness, the icy water rising around their ankles, then their knees. This is it. This is the mortal blow they all feared. Yet the will to survive is a powerful force. Damage control parties, armed with little more than courage and brute strength, charge into the inferno on the fantail. They fight the fires with hoses whose water pressure is fading. They tend to the wounded with torn shirts and battle dressings. They drag the bodies of their fallen comrades away from the flames. The ship is wounded, but her heart is still beating. The engines, miraculously, are still running. But the worst is yet to come. With the Laffey dead in the water, circling aimlessly, she is at her most vulnerable. The remaining Japanese pilots see this. They see the smoke, the fires, the lack of maneuver. It is the kill shot. From the clouds, a final, determined group of 3 aircraft emerges. A Zero, a Val, and another Betty bomber. They circle like sharks that have smelled blood in the water. They are no longer in a hurry. They are taking their time, choosing their angle of attack with cold, methodical precision. The Laffey's remaining guns, barely half of which she started with, track them helplessly. The ammunition is running low. The men are operating on sheer nerve. Commander Becton, his bridge shrouded in smoke, knows this is the final act. He looks at the faces of his young officers, sees the fear, but also the defiance. He gets on the intercom, his voice raspy but firm, echoing through the battered ship. "All hands, this is the captain. We've taken a hard hit, but we're not done. Give them everything you've got left. Make every shot count." It is a plea and a command. The 3 enemy aircraft begin their final dives from different angles. The silence is the most deafening sound they have ever heard. After hours of unrelenting, soul-shattering noise, the absence of it is unnerving. A vacuum filled only by the lapping of waves against the scarred hull and the mournful cries of the wounded. The USS Laffey is a ghost of a ship. Thick, acrid smoke from a dozen fires coils into the sky, a funeral shroud marking her position for any enemy for 100 miles. The deck is a slick, horrific landscape of oil, blood, and seawater. Bodies, covered by grimy canvas, lie in a grim row amidships. The living move among them, their faces blank with shock and exhaustion, performing their duties with the automatism of deep trauma. Commander Becton, his voice a raw croak, begins the monumental task of damage assessment. The reports that filter back to the bridge are a catalog of a ship's death throes. The rudder is jammed hard over. The engines are failing. Steering control is gone. Fires rage in the aft living quarters, and the sick bay is overflowing. The doctors performing triage with a grim, heartbreaking efficiency. The Laffey is not just wounded, she is mortally wounded. She is kept afloat by her watertight compartments and the sheer, stubborn will of her crew. This is where the battle transforms. The enemy is no longer the Japanese pilot in the sky. The enemy is the sea itself. The enemy is the fire creeping towards the ammunition magazines. The enemy is the floodwater rising in the engineering spaces. This is a battle of engineering, of brute force, and of pure, unyielding courage. Damage control parties, armed with axes and shoring timbers, become the new frontline troops. They battle the infernos with weakening water pressure, the hoses feeling heavy as lead in their tired arms. Below decks, in the stifling, dark hell of the engine room, men work waist-deep in oily, cold water, fighting to patch ruptured pipes and restore power. Every spark of electricity, every pump that whirs back to life is a victory. Every fire that is extinguished is a territory reclaimed. They are no longer fighting for victory. They are fighting for the right to simply remain afloat. They are fighting for the chance to see another sunrise, to tell this story. A young engineer, his face a mask of grime, works for an hour with a welding torch in a confined, smoke-filled space to seal a crack in the hull, knowing that if he fails, the sea will claim them all. He succeeds and slumps against the bulkhead, too tired to even cheer. This is heroism, not in a dramatic flash, but in the slow, grinding, determined struggle against oblivion. Meanwhile, the radio room, miraculously still partly operational, sends out a continuous, desperate SOS on the fleet frequency. Any station, this is Laffey. We are dead in the water, heavily damaged, numerous casualties. Request immediate assistance. The operator repeats the message, his voice a monotone of hope and despair. Out here, on the lonely radar picket line, help could be hours away. And every minute that passes, the Laffey sinks a little lower in the water. A new fear begins to gnaw at the crew, the fear of the submarine. A crippled ship, billowing smoke, is the perfect target for a Japanese sub's torpedoes. Every man who looks out at the surrounding sea sees a periscope in every wave. The tension is a slow, tightening coil. They have survived the sky, only to be delivered to the mercy of the deep. Then a lookout's cry, "Smoke on the horizon, bearing 090." Every soul on deck strains to see. Is it rescue, or is it a Japanese surface ship coming to finish the job? The speck grows, resolving into the familiar, beautiful silhouette of an American destroyer. Then another, and another, flanked by a larger landing craft, an LCSL. A wave of emotion so powerful it brings men to their knees sweeps the ship. It's not a cheer, it's a sob of relief, a collective exhalation of a breath held for hours. The cavalry has arrived. But as the rescue ships draw nearer, signaling their intent to come alongside and take the Laffey under tow, a final cruel twist of fate emerges. The same currents and winds that have kept the Laffey afloat are now pushing the burning, crippled hulk directly towards the rocky, enemy-held coast of Okinawa. They have been saved from the Kamikazes, only to be delivered unto the guns of the Japanese army, drifting helplessly towards a shore where capture or destruction by coastal artillery is now a terrifying, imminent certainty. Hope, so recently ignited by the sight of friendly ships, now curdles into a fresh kind of dread. The USS Laffey, a lifeless, burning hulk, is caught in a relentless current, a slow-motion car crash towards the jagged outline of Okinawa. On the horizon, the rescue fleet, the destroyers Macomb and Powers, and the landing craft LCSL-51 maneuver with frantic urgency. They can see the danger. The Japanese shore batteries, hidden in the island's rugged terrain, have surely spotted this prize drifting into their lap. The Laffey's crew, who moments before felt the sweet relief of salvation, now watch the enemy coast grow larger with a sinking horror. They are unarmed, unable to steer, unable to run. They are a trophy of war, about to be claimed. Commander Becton orders the preparation of scuttling charges, a final, desperate act to deny the ship to the enemy. The thought is anathema to every sailor, to destroy the ship they have fought so desperately to save. But they will not let her become a propaganda symbol for Tokyo Rose. Out of the rescue fleet, the LCSL-51, a smaller, unarmored landing craft, makes a decision of breathtaking courage. It turns not towards the Laffey, but towards the shore. It increases to full speed, its bow throwing up a white wake, and positions itself between the drifting destroyer and the island. It is a David placing itself before Goliath, a sheer act of defiant protection. Its crew knows the risk. They are a soft target, and they are inviting the fire of every coastal gun on Okinawa. On the Laffey, men watch, their hearts in their mouths, as the little ship begins laying a smokescreen. A chemical generator pours out a thick, white, choking cloud that billows across the water, slowly building a wall of fog between the Laffey and the shore. It is a race against time and tide. Will the smokescreen thicken enough to hide the destroyer before the Japanese gunners find their range? The tension is unbearable. Every second stretches into an eternity. They wait for the first shell to scream out from the island, for the geyser of water, or the direct hit on the brave little landing craft that has offered itself as a shield. Simultaneously, the destroyer Macomb maneuvers astern of the Laffey. Through brilliant seamanship and under the cover of the developing smokescreen, her crew manages to get a tow line across the treacherous, debris-strewn water between the two ships. A working party on the Laffey's devastated fantail, dodging hot metal and slippery decks, secures the heavy cable. The line goes taut. For a long, agonizing moment, nothing happens. The Laffey is a dead weight of over 2,000 tons. Then, with a groan of protesting metal, the crippled destroyer begins to move. Inch by inch, foot by foot, the Macomb starts to pull her, not towards safety, but away from the deadly shore. It is a painfully slow process. The smokescreen holds, a miraculous man-made fog bank granted by the bravery of the LCSL-51. No Japanese shells come. The enemy, for whatever reason, holds its fire. Perhaps they are fooled, perhaps they are repositioning. The reason doesn't matter. The opportunity is there. For the first time in hours, the Laffey is moving under someone else's power, away from immediate destruction. But the journey is far from over. The tow line, stressed far beyond its limits, creaks and groans. A single sharp report echoes across the water, a sound that chills the blood of every sailor who hears it. The tow line has snapped. The Laffey, her forward momentum lost, begins to drift once more, her stern swinging around lazily, once again turning her vulnerable side towards the enemy coast, as the smokescreen begins to thin, revealing her position once more to the waiting guns of Okinawa. The snap of the tow cable is a sound of hearts breaking. The thick, heavy line, the Laffey's only tether to life, whips back through the water and coils on the Macomb's deck like a slain serpent. The sense of despair that washes over the men of the Laffey is profound, a physical weight that threatens to crush what little spirit they have left. They are so close. Safety was just a tow line away. Now, adrift again, they are sliding back into the jaws of the beast. The smokescreen is dissipating, torn by a capricious wind, and the dark, menacing shape of Okinawa is once again visible. On the bridge, Commander Becton closes his eyes for a second, gathering his resolve. There is no quit in this man, or in his crew. He signals the Macomb, "Try again." Aboard the rescue ship, the crew doesn't hesitate. They know what is at stake. They begin the laborious, dangerous process of hauling the broken cable back in and preparing a new one. It is a race against the current, against the wind, and against the patience of the Japanese gunners. The second attempt is even more perilous. The ships are closer to the shore now, and the current seems stronger. The LCSL-51, its own smoke generators nearly exhausted, makes another pass, laying down a fresh, if thinner, curtain of white smoke. The men on the fantails of both ships work with a frantic, focused energy, their world reduced to the heaving deck and the heavy, wet cable. The heaving line is thrown. It falls short. It is thrown again. This time, a sailor on the Laffey, leaning far out over the broken railing, snags it. The stronger line is pulled across. Hands, raw and bleeding, secure the hawser to the only solid bit of deck left. The signal is given. The Macomb's engines strain, the tow line vibrating like a giant cello string, singing a note of immense strain. It holds. The Laffey begins to move again, this time with more purpose. The Macomb pulls her due east, away from the deadly coast, into the open, safer waters of the fleet anchorage. With every yard gained, a silent cheer goes up. They are winning. They are actually winning the battle to save their ship. The journey to the Karama-Reto anchorage is a slow, funeral-paced procession. Other ships fall in around them, forming a protective screen, their guns watching the sky, a gesture of respect for the mauled warrior in their midst. As the Laffey is finally, gently, nudged into a quiet bay, a profound exhaustion settles over her crew. They look at their ship in the clear light of the setting sun, and the full extent of the damage is staggering. Her superstructure is a Swiss cheese of shrapnel holes and cannon fire. Her aft section is a blackened, twisted ruin. Her decks are warped and blood-stained. 32 of their shipmates are dead, and 71 wounded. But she is floating. She is home. The statistics of the battle are tallied, and they are mind-numbing. In the span of 80 minutes, the USS Laffey had been attacked by 22 Japanese aircraft. She was hit by 6 kamikazes and 4 bombs. She had shot down 9 confirmed enemy planes. She had endured 7 separate, distinct kamikaze attacks aimed directly at her destruction. 7. It was a record of survival that bordered on the miraculous. The story of the Laffey is not just a tale of a ship. It is the story of the American sailor, the boy from the farm, the kid from the city, the men who, when faced with impossible odds, did not falter. They stood to their guns, they fought their ship, and they brought her home. The Laffey was repaired, and she went on to serve her nation with distinction in Korea and beyond, a floating monument to the courage of that day. She survives today as a museum ship, her scars still visible, a silent, powerful testament to the day she stared into the heart of the divine wind and refused to be blown away. The men who served aboard her are heroes, not for the grand, sweeping victories of generals, but for the simple, profound act of holding the line, of surviving the unsurvivable, and in doing so, defining the very meaning of valor for generations to come.